system chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, oh, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.
Well, have you ever had one of those weekends where your alarm goes off at 9 a.m. and you think you hit snooze because you
Yeah.
don't have anything happening, and then you open your eyes again and it's 10:45 and you were supposed to be on a show at 10:30?
I had
Little Chad has.
I thought that Brahma was trying to walls me this morning, just where he assured me he was going to be here for this thing, promised me he was going to
I
be
am
here for
unable to
this
hear
thing.
little Chad.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. And
Refresh, Slender.
yeah, and once
Refreshing.
so Brahma assured us that he was going to be part of this thing, and then when it came time for the thing, Brahma wasn't here, didn't talk to anybody, was just gone.
Yeah, I retired.
So you almost pulled a perfect walls.
Almost.
Almost. I would have had to brought Slender in like as a backup to deploy for the show.
I
With
don't know
no-
why you didn't go in and set up everything.
Um,
Lazy.
Number one, I was concerned you might have died because not for nothing, Brahma, you do drink quantities sometimes when you're gaming. And
Sometimes.
so I was like, there is a not insignificant, percentage possibility that there might have been like, incident, like
This is
Biden
true.
had in Nevada.
Yes. Or Biden had at the Vatican. Or Biden had at the the meeting with the royals.
Well, I wasn't saying that you shat yourself. I was saying that you.
That could have been his soul leaving. We don't know when his soul
Yeah.
actually left. But yeah, we're here. Sorry we're late. It's been a busy week again. It's been a lot of repeat of this week because Kamala Harris just keeps going out and doing the same exact speech over and over and over. She's had at least 3 instances of doing the exact same speech, word for word, except on this last one, she changed a little. She decided that she's now the one who's going to not tax tips and claims it as her own thought. So
the
Not
best
sure what's going on there.
the best part of that whole scenario is that she was the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, which had all that money for IRS agents, which they have now used to go after, and I quote, servers and hospitality workers for not reporting their tips.
Yes, 87,000 IRS agents.
That's like an actual headline. You can go find it on Twitter. Like, it was reporting the IRS is specifically tasking a lot of these new agents to shake the hospitality and wait staff by the ankles to get their taxes on their tips.
Has anybody else thought that maybe this is a bit of a bait and switch in that she's saying that she's going to do away with taxes for tips because she knows that tips are going to go away when the minimum wage gets raised to $30 an hour?
Well, that or under communism, nobody has any money to tip anybody.
I
That's
was
what I'm
going to go
saying. She's
one
not going to
further.
tax tips because there's not going to be any tipping.
No, I was going to go one further and say that she's just a lying bitch, and so she's never going to pass this if she wanted anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Also true. Well, and that's kind of the whole point of everything that she's
But
saying right now.
I was channeling my private room Trump, by the way, because allegedly that's how he describes her, and I thought that should be on the record for
Well,
us.
that's how he
Sure.
described her on the golf course that we all saw
That's-
weeks ago
you
that
know,
they're
that-
just now discovering the video of.
That is funny because yeah, now I just thought about that. It's like we saw it on video like right
That was
after.
before Biden stepped down.
Yeah,
and
that was-
Kamala was appointed.
That was like the Friday after the debate where he nuked Joe Biden's career.
Yeah, and he said, you know, now they're going to have to bring in Kamala, and she's such a bitch. And we all saw that. I don't know why they're bringing that up again as, oh, well, he just said this about her. It's like, no, he's known this about her.
I
He
mean,
said
if
it
the
about
shoe
her weeks
fits-
ago. What, Slender?
I said, if the shoe fits,
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's I know that the last time I was on the show and I tried to warn people, polling is going to be starting to drop. That is going to purposefully be making it look like Kamala is having like the greatest, few weeks of any politician, and not to get crazy about it, because if you start going into the crosstabs, some of the shenanigans going on
Oh, yeah.
is I've been, like Rich Barris, who's got the People's Pundit here on YouTube, will kind of, he actually is a professional pollster, whatever they go by, and he goes into how there's a lot of response bias, which is the people who are answering, who are excited to answer, are going to be predisposed to being the people supporting Kamala, and so you're getting response bias skews. You're getting all sorts of stuff. We talked about in the poll where that one, it showed her up by like 11 in Michigan, but somehow losing in Pennsylvania, which is not in any realm of possibility where that would happen. So
Well, yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans going on. Even in Polymarket, I think Polymarket is responding to the polling that is bad rather than being an actual
yep. And then
kind of real time poll in itself.
And then in the midst of all that, you still have CNBC, which is not exactly a right-leaning institution, dropping their Trump plus 2 poll.
Right.
That's because their pollster was being consistent with how he was applying his metrics. And wouldn't you know, there was no movement whatsoever. Kamala maybe picked up a point by consolidating some of the Democrat vote that was getting a little more fatigued, but otherwise it really didn't change anything.
And Rasmussen, the only one that I think is probably actually polling correctly for the most part, because that's what they do. They're not affiliated to like a TV channel or, any other thing. They have to get it right or they get burnt alive for it.
Yeah, Rasmussen is a lot like Zack Snyder on a Geeks and Gamers stream. They are not affiliated at all. So.
Right. So they have to be right or they just don't get any money anymore.
Yeah. Trafalgar's another one that's been dropping. They
Right.
dropped Battleground polls today, and they have Trump up in all of them, but it's close. I mean, which is what we knew. that they're, we're talking Trump up like a point, 1.5 to 2 points.
And Rasmussen, I think Thursday had him +5 still.
Yeah, that was for likely voter, like nationally.
Hmm.
But I didn't look at it. I don't think Rasmussen broke down, or I didn't see the breakdown on a swing state basis.
I didn't see the
Well, and I
swing
mean,
state, but I did see um, with Hispanics, he's up like 53%.
yeah.
And with the black vote, he's at like 30%. And
Yeah.
that's with
With
the same sample size that they have been taking this whole time.
yeah, and with the Democrats, like, at least 80% of the party, they're not going to change their vote. Like, it could be Kamala, it could be Joe Biden, it could be a fern with a D slapped on the pot. It doesn't matter. They're going to vote Democrat because they're not. It's a we will not vote for Trump. He's the devil kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's what we're
So
talking about with this Mephisto. That there is, this is what
There's still honeymoon period. We're going to
And-
try to make it look pretty.
and specifically response bias. Like, look, most of us, when we get a call from someone asking us to take a poll, what do we be like? No, I don't have time. I'm busy.
There was the
peop-
poll that was being touted on Twitter yesterday by all of the very left-wing, accounts, Harry and the Krasensteins, all of them. And when you dig into that one, all they sampled was leftist older women. I mean, there was no youth in there. It was all like
yeah,
50
that's
to
where I was gonna
70
go. Sample
leftist
selection
women,
bias
and
is
it
a
was
thing.
only 600 people that were sampled. So
And they're trying to find the people that are going to make the numbers say what they want them to say. Because the goal is not to lie to themselves. The goal is to demoralize Republicans.
A good example, by the way, of why that poll was just straight trash on the issue of the economy. According to that poll, Kamala had like an 8-point lead over Trump to handle the economy. And even
nowhere in the country does that.
Yeah, like even in the polls that had Kamala up, they were not stupid enough to try to like rig that crosstab.
Right.
They like, even those ones still show Trump up at least 10 on the economic question.
Yep. So, point being, don't freak out.
Yep.
This is not going to continue to look this way for very long. She'll get a bump again at the DNC convention, but ultimately, the first time she has to actually speak, it's not going to go well.
Question:
Now-
Do either of you guys watch Clavin with regards to that whole economic thing?
Andrew Clavin from Daily
Yeah.
Wire.
I haven't
Yeah.
watched him recently. I've watched him on Megyn Kelly's show.
He made a really interesting point, which was, remember back when Trump was in office, he kept saying, or everybody kept saying, hey, the economy's great, but the media and the elites were like, the economy's terrible. What are you talking about? Now, Biden and Kamala are in office, and the elites and the media are like, the economy's great, and all the normal people are like, the economy's terrible.
Yeah.
So who's the economy good for right now? Who's really serving who?
Rich people is who
Right.
it's good for.
Yeah.
So I brought that slide up as for our transition for why we wanted specifically to have Slender back on the show this week. And that's, this meme's pretty funny. Like Tim Walz explaining how tough it was going to Italy to actual combat veterans. Because the main story that blew up this week, and it originated 100% off of Twitter and got pushed from there, or X.
Yeah.
And to the credit of people, like, where the reason we do this show, the reason we're talking about it, is because even though you think it may just be kind of like, background noise, social media stuff can take off and and actually change the narrative. And in 2016, we all remember that footage of Hillary getting thrown into the truck after she collapsed at the 9/11 memorial event.
Yep.
Really helped change the game.
A hell of a lot quicker than Trump got thrown in the truck after
Yeah.
he was attacked.
Or even longer back, you go to John Kerry and the Swift boat vets.
And so this week, Kamala Harris's first major choice as the presumptive nominee, I guess now the official nominee because they did a virtual roll call,
Yeah.
is selecting her running mate. And she, in spite of all the reasons she should have gone with Josh Shapiro
Oh, we
as
know
the
why she didn't. We
as
all
the
know why she didn't.
I know.
And they've actually said it on a few
Yeah.
broadcasts. Not
So
not them, but the actual,
yeah.
the actual pundits.
So we don't need to relitigate that because what's done is done, and I'm happy that she didn't. She
Right.
went with Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who she thought, and the reason, I think the main reason that they had already decided for him, he was the main champion of their weird
Yeah,
attack
he
line,
started the weird attack line. Yep.
and he had military service because I think that was something they wanted to, Kamala brings youth versus Trump. JD Vance being selected moved military service in because he's a global war on terror vet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted to have a Biden-esque politician, so he's an older white dude who speaks to the unions and they speak to rural. And by the way, this is so surface level that their complete analysis on why Walls was going to speak to rural white guys is because he's a white guy. And that's it. They didn't ever look at how he actually ran his campaigns and was he successful in appealing to rural whites. No, he's never been.
No.
So they bring him in, and within a matter of hours and this is specifically after the Kamala Harris campaign post a video of Walls at an event in 2018 or circa 2018 where he was talking about gun control, and specifically he makes a statement that weapons of war that I carried in war should not be available for regular citizens.
Right.
Not, and this isn't a
So
gun.
no Beretta 9 mil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're not going to get into the gun control question because I think we all universally agree on what that actually should be. But the reason this blew up is because that immediately put forward the question: when was Walls in combat? And it brought back up, and this was a story that had been covered in 2006 when he ran for Congress, in 2018 when he first ran for governor, and again in 2022 when he ran for re-election as governor, where it turns out that he's a lying sack of shit who never actually deployed to a combat zone.
Dude, here I
And
was trying not to curse like a sailor,
I
and
can't,
Chad's
no,
bringing it today.
I can't. Walls has got me so pissed off because on a personal level, I've said it, I'm the son of a sergeant major. I didn't serve myself, but my father was sergeant major during the first Gulf War. There was a lot of days, and because of the commitment he made, that my dad wasn't home. My dad was in the Middle East for a while. I mean, he did things, right? As a result of committing. And it's not like my dad wanted to go. Nobody wants to go over there. It's not a great place to hang out. He did it because he had an obligation, right? He had to take care of his troops. He
Dude,
was
you
there to,
signed on for the job. You better be ready to
yeah.
do it when
So,
it's time.
and that takes a toll on the families too, right? I mean, that I can't speak from, that's why we have Slender here to speak to the service side, but I can speak from the family side of a soldier who was doing all sorts of, like, for 20 plus years, active duty, by the way, not just, this is something I kind of take a little personal. Service is great. I'm not going to denigrate anybody who is serving in a National Guard unit. But when they say 24 years of Guard service, please understand that to have a satisfactory year of Guard service, you're talking 20 to 30 days. That means you're two days a month, plus you do 2 weeks usually once a year where you go for your training and other things. So that should get you somewhere between 20 to 30 days of quote unquote active duty time. And if you do that as a guardsman, that is considered a satisfactory year of service, and that becomes a year of service for your record.
Yeah,
So
there's nothing wrong with being a weekend warrior, but you are a weekend warrior. What's really bad is if you're a weekend warrior and then when they're like, "All right, well, now we need you," you go, "Eh." Nah, I'm pulling chocks.
No, what's even worse is if you're a weekend warrior, they say, we need you, we're deploying to Iraq. You tell your higher up in the chain of command, the brigade sergeant major, you know I'll be there. You can count on me. I'm committed. And then when the
Yeah.
brigade sergeant major shows up for the next meeting, it's like, where's Walls? Oh, he pieced out. He retired. He's gone.
Where's Walzo?
Exactly. Oh, there you go.
Where's
That's perfect.
Walzo? Oh,
Where's
somebody make that
Oh, we
meme.
have to make that meme. If the Legion, if anyone in the Legion of Memers watches our show, do the Where's Walzo? And
I'm in the Legion, but I don't actually meme.
uh, call quick,
I mean,
quick,
but I
put
don't
up the
know that
no
I
grain
will make
rot
a great
signal
one.
and get him to make it.
Right. The
Because
Superman thing.
yeah, the Where's Walzo, that would be, we should do that because that'd go viral, Rama. You can have him make sure he puts a command sergeant major patch all over his jacket.
Yeah,
There's
give,
For
core
Where's
member.
give him a really
Core
sweet
member will
helmet
do it.
with NVGs and everything attached, but make the helmet red and white stripes.
Oh, and just for good measure, you might as well put Special Forces on his hat
Yeah.
because he's also done that in pictures,
Yes.
representing himself as Special Forces.
So to give the basic timeline, and then we'll turn this over to Slender to kind of discuss the the perspective of of a veteran, active duty veteran who was in the military during the global war on terror, had to deal with all the shit that came down as a result of that. Tim Walls was conditionally, very quote unquote conditionally promoted to command sergeant major in approximately the second half of 2004, where he was given the duties of the command sergeant major for the battalion he worked in November of 2004, and these are all statements coming from the brigade levels command sergeant major, who did an interview with CNN that they didn't like and tried to cut off because he laid out all these facts.
Right.
In November 2004 is where they get their warning notice, because for all these people online who don't understand, when you are a command level officer and enlisted person, you tend to get notice ahead of rank and file when things are going to happen so that you can get everything ready. So they got notice in November of 2004 that next year, at some point next year, your guard unit is getting deployed. Be ready. Walls is is aware of that. By February of 2005, the brigade level command unit is organizing meetings with all the battalion staff to get them on the same page, as he described it, to do team building, to get ready, because they know this deployment's coming very soon and they want everybody ready to go. Walls tells this brigade current command sergeant major, who is his next level up, right? He's the one that he reports to, because even though he's not, there's non-com chain of command as well, non-commissioned officer. He tells him, I'm going to file to run for Congress, but I'm still committed to the guard. I'm going to be here. Okay. Then the brigade sergeant major says they have another meeting sometime in March, April time, where once again he has a conversation with Walls, and Walls says, I did my paperwork for the congressional run, but I haven't been nominated or selected. So I'm still 100% committed to going. If we get, if and when we get the deployment, you don't need to worry about it. By the next meeting they have, which is in June, Walls is gone. And the
By
commands
going over his head.
Walls is gone, and then one of the other brigade level sergeant majors is now in his place. He actually had to move down to take over the unit for Walls, and the brigade sergeant major who's there, he's like, "Where's Walls?" And this replacement guy was like, "Oh, he quit." And when I say quit, I know that he put in his retirement paperwork. That asshole quit. So I'm going to say quit, and I'm not going to worry about it. He quit.
Yeah. In
And
2001, he re-upped for
Yeah.
6 years.
And then, as a condition of becoming promoted to some sergeant major, you have to commit to doing years of service post promotion, which would have even possibly put him past, depending on when he finished the paperwork for the school. He had to commit to doing 2 years after being promoted or after finishing school, whichever was the later in the process. because if the army's investing time and money in you, you have to give back time. That's how it always works, and Slender can speak to this. Like, the exchange for them giving you training is pretty much always a time commitment that has to be extended.
It
Oh yeah,
was
my
essentially
C
2 years of
school.
command school, right?
The
Yeah,
sergeant major school's 2 years.
Yeah.
my C school was contingent upon a mandatory 2-year extension, and it was negotiated at the beginning of my contract when I joined, but as a result, I was guaranteed special electronics training. So
Yeah, so so he's gone, and so by July is when the official muster order comes through that says your unit's being deployed. By the way, that is also when stop loss would have officially become a thing. For people who may have heard this in passing, because it was the name of a movie. It was a very controversial army process. I think even more than just the army. I think all the branches were doing, but mainly army and marines were the ones who had to do it the most because they were boots on the ground. Stop loss is when your unit's getting deployed, even if you have all the time you'd need and you could retire, they can say nope, you're not going anywhere, and they can even pull people back in if they had just retired and had like some of the stuff, like from when, if he put in his packet in July, even though he had all the time he needed, they could have said stop loss, sorry, you're going on deployment, we're just shredding your packet. It's no, it's not an issue.
Yeah.
can I expound on that a little?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
It's something a lot of people don't know if you haven't enlisted, but there's no such thing as a 3-year contract. There's no such thing as a 4-year contract. There's no such thing as a 6-year contract. Technically, on initial enlistment, you're signing up for 8 years. There's usually a clause in there that says, um, in order to reach that 8 years, whatever you don't serve on active duty is inactive reserve, meaning you don't have to do the weekend warrior thing. You're not reporting to anyone, but they can call you up at like the 7.5 year mark when you think you're out and be like, "Hey, we need you," and you are obligated at that point.
Okay.
So just to provide a meme version of what actually happened to make it nice and clear for people. uh,
Yeah.
Tim
Very
Walls,
much.
he and his unit in Iraq, even it was an artillery unit. His battalion is an artillery one. They were tasked with providing escort operations, and they took losses. At least two that I know of that were killed in action. In
One
addition,
19-year-old.
in one 19-year-old, and I can tell you, there's articles going back a little while where that Gold Star mom has been lighting up Tim Walls for years because this a-hole promised his soldiers that he'd be there and he wasn't. And on the other hand, by all accounts, they ended up with an exemplary command sergeant major. The guy who replaced him was, the kind of guy who, as a sergeant major, actually still went on the escort missions with the guys. You don't usually see command sergeant majors doing that kind of thing.
Which he's been on with Megan Kelly, I
Yeah,
believe.
he's the one who, he's the one who went on with Megan Kelly. The other
I
one,
would be very curious to hear what the enlisted personnel that served under him thought of him. Like I mean I know we heard what his replacement thinks, but I just wonder, cuz usually guys like him, it becomes very obvious that everyone knows they're dirtbags.
Yeah. Well,
the
I think we'll see a lot of that coming out.
one of the biggest red flags that I saw is, and I think I shared this on X, which is a New York Post article where the
Yeah.
chaplain came out and called him a coward. And
Oh yeah, that's not a good sign.
and
Takes
if
a
the
lot to get the chaplain
yeah,
to speak up.
the chaplain is the kind of guy who's like, I'm going to counsel someone if they accidentally drunk drove and got in an accident, they're still worth, like, I don't know if how I can emphasize how effed you are if you made the chaplain speak ill of you. Like, this guy, you had to be an absolute piece of crap. And here's a good
It's
thing, as
pretty
an
tough. It is pretty tough to get the chaplain turning on you.
and this is going to be inside baseball too. When he retired, he got an RCOM, which is an Army commendation. That is a
Well,
big
yeah,
F.
I mean,
That's no, that's an
he's an
FU.
officer.
No, that's an FU.
That's
Yeah,
we give
but
this to
what I'm
everybody.
saying is
You
Yeah,
earn nothing else.
exactly, we're
yeah.
gonna give you something. Everybody gets their, especially officers. You're gonna get some sort of little, here's your piece of candy.
Yeah, so I spoke with my father, who was a retired sergeant major, and I said, what is that?" And he's like, "Oh, you get an RCOM for like having a pulse. It's the participation trophy of awards." He told me that like one time he usually got what was called like merits of service or legions of merit, and
Yeah.
at one job, a duty assignment, when he was getting ready to transfer out, he saw that he was going to get another one, and he called the guy, his commanding officer, was like, "Give me an RCOM," because he had never gotten one because he'd always done a good job, so he always got the higher ranked ones, and he wanted to fill out his ribbon. He was like, "I want the whole set," like I don't have one of
Right.
those. And the guy's like, "No, I'm not giving you an RCOM. You're better than that." And he's like, "Give me a damn RCOM. Like I want one. I
But
need my
that's
I need the full." Like he was almost like a collector's. Like I need the full royal flush, man. I don't
No,
have.
dude, I totally get it. That's actually pretty awesome. I relate because I was always like, ooh, if I could just find another ribbon, I'm into that
Slender in
fourth
his
row.
completionist attitude.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like the way it worked, he kept getting like the meritorious service Legion merit ones. So they just add like you get the ribbon, and they just keep adding like an oak leaf to it for each subsequent one you get. And he's
Yep.
like, "No, I want the other ribbon,
Yeah,
for my board."
I've already got the decoration that pins onto the front of the ribbon. I want a different ribbon.
Well, it's kind of like the meme that has gone around over the past few years, where it's like got General Milley with his whole chest is just covered in decorations, and then you look at General Patton, who is actually doing something in a war, and he's got like one tiny strip because
Well,
back
pause.
then we didn't just
Just
give
in
out
case.
everything for nothing.
Nah, he probably has more. Some people, especially if their ribbon rack just starts to get out of hand, right? You
Yeah.
only have to wear high 3. So it might just be
Yeah.
one row with 3 ribbons, but they're like super ribbons. They're
The
like,
we're
big
talking
ones.
wow,
we're
that
talking
dude's
like
got some stuff.
bronze stars before they've completely. All right, so FYI,
Because there's no way a general doesn't have more than 3 ribbons.
yeah, just to let you know, bronze stars now, they kind of neutered a bronze star. So bronze stars in like World War II, everybody got a bronze star, did something really brave and deserving. But they changed it because during peacetime, we had so much lengthy peacetime post Vietnam, no one's getting bronze stars anymore, right? That's
Right.
terrible. So they changed it and they created a bronze star, and then a bronze star with the V for valor, right? So the bronze star versus where you can just get it for doing service, versus the bronze star with the actual V for valor,
For going
basically
If it
over and
doesn't have a
above.
V, it basically
Yeah.
means nothing. It's the same as a NAM or a COM. It's just an attaboy.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's something like when there's a meme going around where they were trying to basically mock JD Vance's service in comparison to Walls, and they were like listing off the awards, and like they had to leave off all of JD Vance. JD Vance did 1 4-year enlistment, and he still
But it
had
also happened to be in Iraq.
no, but what I'm
Correct.
saying is he still had a stack long of the awards he got, right? And
Right.
including one of the ones that they specifically put on Walls for this meme was the GWOT Global War on Terror Service. And then they left it out of Vance, even though he had the same award. And it was like, you guys are being so disingenuous, even with this thing. It's ridiculous.
Well, the GWOT, like everybody gets that.
If you
It's
were
a
in
gimme.
if you were in the
But if
military,
you
you
were in
have
the
the
theater,
Global War on Terror Expeditionary, that means you were over there actually supporting operations.
so this is where we
supporting or on, in theater.
You had to be.
I was never in theater, but I supported operations in the in the Med and in the Gulf, so I have expeditionary as well.
Okay.
So
It,
yeah,
it makes me
Slender
eligible
being
for veterans of foreign wars.
so yeah, Slender being in the Navy, they have a slightly. If you're on a carrier, you project force out, so you can
Or
be
Right.
part of a
yeah,
carrier strike group.
yeah.
But that's
So
different than
yeah.
being in Italy
No,
doing
that is why. Yeah,
logistics,
so that is
or
why Walls has the Global War on Terror ribbon, but not the like in Afghanistan version.
Well,
not
and
in
and here's
theater?
the thing,
Yeah,
and this becomes an argument because I guess they've decided that the Persian Gulf is no longer a hazardous duty imminent danger zone, but
the Houthis would
anywhere,
disagree.
well, if you are anywhere in the Gulf, you are in range of Iran's Charlie 802 missiles. So you tell me that's not an imminent danger situation.
Especially with what they're doing now. Um, Stuttering Guitarist asked, is this going to be Swift Boat bad, or will it dissipate? I think that depends on us.
It depends on the person, really. I think at the end of the day, and unfortunately, we've become so tribal and we've arranged ourselves into teams that a lot of people are just going to rationalize it away because they want it to be, they want to win. Like, I don't know. We just don't care about principles anymore. All we care about is our team. And it's because this should be Swift Boat bad, in my opinion. I didn't think so until I had all the information, but I think I have enough information at this point where I'm like, I hate this.
Now that
This
you've looked at it, is it jail worthy?
I don't
Because Stolen
no.
Valor does carry a prison sentence if you're actually convicted of it.
I don't know. I don't know enough about those kind of laws. It pisses me off because basically, and I don't know if this is across the boards because I can only offer kind of the Navy perspective. But from my perspective, every time I achieve the next rank, a third class petty officer, second class petty officer, first class petty officer, you take the test, you're and then eventually you receive notification, hey, you've been selected for advancement. And once you get that notification that you're selected for advancement, you get frocked. And now what frocked means is you've been selected for advancement. Your advancement date will be like, say it's January, your advancement date will be in April, but you've been frocked. So you then gain permission to wear the rank and assume the duties of the rank you've been selected for advancement to.
Until your
But you
ceremony actually happens.
Yeah,
Is
and
that essentially?
everybody's gonna call you ET1, even though you're not you're only a frocked petty officer at that point. But on the paperwork, it's gonna say frocked. Um, you're not technically a first class petty officer at that point. You're in your probationary period, so to speak. So if in April I'm scheduled for advancement, but I leave in February, I was never a first class petty officer. And even if in April I'm scheduled for advancement and then I leave that same June, my separation paperwork should reflect my high 3, whatever rank I was for 3 years. At whatever my highest rank was for a 3-year period is what I retired or separated as. So
Well,
if he wasn't an E9 command sergeant major, is that what it is? Command sergeant major?
E9 is Sergeant Major and Command Sergeant Major are both E9s.
Command
It's
sergeant major is like a command master chief. It's not your standard master
yeah,
chief,
it's
right?
because you specifically went to
to
Yeah.
basically
command school.
to a command. Well, you have to go to Sergeant Major school. You take the same
Yeah.
school, but you basically subspecialize. It's like having a minor.
But
like
he's claiming he had that rank even though he was never actually officially assigned that rank. He was still in
Right.
a probationary period
He
when he left.
actually retired as a master sergeant.
he tried to retire as a Command Sergeant Major, and by September of 2005, when the paperwork was officially reviewed, they knocked his ass right back down, as was appropriate to Master Sergeant.
Master sergeant.
Which
Yeah,
is
that's
yeah.
The
to
highest
me, that's an
actual
F
rank
that guy,
attained.
he's full of it kind of situation. Like that makes me very angry when you got out as a frocked E9 essentially and you're claiming it. I don't like that.
He claimed it constantly. That's where I get like
Well, he had a freaking coin made.
Yeah, he had a challenge coin made, a congressional challenge coin where he used the specific insignia of a Command Sergeant Major. And this is one of my other things that and Slender can back me up on this. One of the main every enlisted guy knows exactly what E rank he's getting paid. You
Yeah.
know it. And he had been collecting retirement benefits as an E8 since 2005 because they knocked him in September of 2005 down when they officially reviewed the paperwork. He knew
Well, and I don't think he was
100% that
even
he was
knocked down. He was just never officially
yes, yeah.
appointed.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like he had been moved conditionally into E9, and so he would have been getting paid E9 wages at like for those months before he bailed on his troops. He would have been getting paid at sergeant major level wages, but it was all conditional. He had require. It's like when you meet. It's like if you get a job and they give you that 90-day probationary period, you're getting paid.
Probation. Yeah.
You're getting paid, but you've got to satisfactorily complete that 90 days, or you get let go. Right? He had commitments he had to make. He had time commitment and school commitment, and he didn't do either.
Right. Did
So
not fulfill the conditions of the conditionary
yeah,
or conditional
yeah,
appointment.
to be
And
a
take all
sergeant
that
major,
off the
you have
table.
to finish the
He
school.
he bailed on his effing unit. Like that's take all the stolen valor, the lying about your rank and your and what you did and all that other crap. Take all that off the table. He bailed on his fucking people.
Well,
Like
and maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, Slender. What does that position entail? Because what I have gathered is that that position is basically you're in charge of doing all the planning with all of the other command sergeant majors and the people above you. So you're kind of the person who gets all the details and starts to put everything in place on how your unit is going to work within this
well, and I don't know
whole
if this is
situation.
how it works with again, my branch might be a little different, but
Right.
the command master chief I assume is very similar to the command sergeant major. And the command master chief is directly under the CO, the commanding officer of the ship. And he's the one who keeps the CO in touch with the pulse of the enlisted arm of that ship.
Right.
What's going on with the enlisted people? What do they need? What do they want? How do they feel? How's morale looking? What can we do to improve things? Etc. Etc. He's the guy who represents the entire enlisted portion of the group. Like if he
Well, he's
leaves,
also the guy responsible for that whole group as well,
well,
right?
and he's the guy who's supposed to know the group. So if he leaves
Right.
right before a deployment, some new guy has to come in and try and get his finger on that pulse, and that's not an overnight thing.
Yeah,
So that sows chaos in a unit.
so in an army situation, an army scenario, Brahma, the sergeant major, if you there's two schools you go with. If you go just regular sergeant major, you're really working like HQ logistics, right? You're basically a whiz for making sure things get done. Your
Right.
job is to be a guy who gets things done. If you go command, if you're going to be a command sergeant major, you're like Slender was describing with the Navy setup, it's very similar to the Army setup. You're attached to to the officer, like the battalion level officer or the brigade level officer. XO, has a sergeant major. That's their command sergeant major. In fact,
Right.
within
You're
the
the
Army,
voice of your
yeah,
unit, right?
you're the voice, you're the enlisted perspective. Like, so the chain of command, like if you're a command sergeant major, you don't oversee officers at all. What you oversee is the non-coms, the non-commissioned officers, the sergeants for each subgroup, right? It's a nesting hierarchy. So that's why when what we've seen in these interviews where the brigade level sergeant major was having meetings, they had in those meetings he was there attached to the brigade level XO officer, and then Tim Walls would have been there working with his battalion level officer as like the head enlisted man. But there's no way to really underemphasize how important the enlisted non-coms are. There we go.
Core member
That's
got it done.
perfect. That's awesome.
That is fantastic.
That is perfect.
Thank you, core member.
And in the army structure, there's actually a sergeant major of the army, and his job is he's in the meetings with the the joint chiefs, and if the army is in charge of the joint chief, but each branch has their own member of the joint chiefs.
Yeah,
But
we have the same thing. We
yeah
have the MCPON, Master
yeah
Chief Petty Officer of the Navy.
yeah so and their
Yeah.
role is to be the voice of the enlisted person in
Yes.
these high level meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where again I have family experience where my father was during the Gulf War involved with working with the sergeant major of the army. And this was not, it was actually very, it was a similar situation where right before the Gulf War, a lot of guard guys who had been promoted to sergeant major decided that it was time to bail right before the deployments to Kuwait, you know, to do that. And you know what they did? Stop loss wasn't the law back then. They hadn't passed it. They got the list of all the people who were put in their retirement paperwork, and the sergeant major of the army called them individually to tell them they were letting down their troops. They needed to do this. This is your, and it's like Slender saying, like, you represent the pinnacle of the enlisted rank.
Yep.
You are supposed to have all the responsibility and privilege of reaching that rank because you've done such good works over your time as an enlisted man. If you leave, that's telling privates, specialists, corporals that this is obviously not a good, like, why is the sergeant major leaving?
To,
Why
to,
is,
to microcosm this down a little, right? I was a first class petty officer. I was also an LPO, which is a liaison petty officer. They're basically in charge of a division, right? I was in charge of maybe 12 guys. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a very small amount, right? Um, but it was rough. The kids were having a hell of a time with all the deployments. With the way things kind of shook out, I ended up being force converted into the crypto field, the intel field, which was very different than electronics. And as a result of that, it looked like if I wanted to give my family stability and stay kind of in the same area for an extended period of time, I would have to do sea duty, sea duty, sea duty, sea duty for another 8 years with no shore duties, all out of Norfolk, and that wasn't working for me. So about 6 months out from our next scheduled deployment, my division officer knew that I was looking for alternatives and was probably going to file my separation paperwork. Um, and like I said, I was only in charge of like 10, 12 guys. So when you're basically your equivalent of a command master chief does that and doesn't do it 6 months out, he's like, "Oh, you guys are leaving tomorrow? Well, I'm not." That's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah. Telling everybody you're responsible for. Have fun. We'll see you later. Have a good trip.
Yeah.
yeah, it's I as like, I don't know. It got me for an entire week. I've been arguing with people online about this, and and I'm only doing it from what I know from being the son of one. And we have Slender talking
Well, and
about
that's
it
why
as a soldier. Yeah.
we have Slender here,
Yep.
and if Mad was able to, we'd have him here because he was actual Army as well. But I don't necessarily feel right accusing somebody of stolen valor as somebody who has never served in any way. But
Yeah, I don't know if it meets the legal threshold for stolen valor.
I would say
That
it
I
does
couldn't tell you.
because he
claiming a
was
rank you didn't
Close.
have
he was
and claiming
claiming.
that he was in
Yeah.
combat.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
well, I'm going to leave the combat part out, but from the rank, I mean, one of the stolen valor things within the law they passed, by the way, which he voted for,
Okay.
he voted for this law, says that if you claim a rank that you did not have in order for personal gain, it's stolen valor. And clearly he was frocking himself in the command sergeant major rank
Hmm.
to promote himself in every campaign he ran for Congress and then for governor and now for vice president.
I
even
mean,
in his own
and here's
press
where it gets
releases.
iffy, right? Here's where it gets iffy though. Is command sergeant major considered a rank?
It is. It has its
Yes.
own insignia.
Okay.
Um,
And then
it's
as
still
far as like the
E9, but
challenge
yeah.
coin, which I hate, right? The challenge coin thing. I hate to say this, but putting it on the challenge coin, you can just claim, "Oh, well, I mean, I just approved the design."
Yeah, now this is the part where because he's National Guard, like the Minnesota National Guard put out a statement that said because and this is their interpretation, and I don't know if it's because now that he's governor, by the way, who helps control a lot of funding for that, just saying. Um the Minnesota National Guard has said, well, he technically served for a period of time as a command sergeant major, so he can he can't say that he retired as one. That would be inappropriate, but he can say he served as one. And
Right.
but the difference is we have it numerous times, including in his own press releases, where he referred to himself as retired command
In his own
sergeant major.
autobiography
Yeah.
and
So
other biographies written that included stuff about
yeah,
him. He
exactly.
never corrected anybody. He just basically let it go the whole time.
And yeah, and as much as the Minnesota National Guard hierarchy was sweeping for him to give him that get out of jail free pass to say, well, it's okay, he can say he was a command sergeant major. He did have the rank for a period of time, but they did confirm, well, but he is definitely not a retired command sergeant major, and that's what he kept saying, retired command sergeant major Tim
And
Walz.
again, taking that off the table, the man sold out his unit. You think he wouldn't do the same with the country?
Right.
Like
Well,
he will do whatever he needs to enrich himself and preserve himself. Other people, they are to him, they are perfectly usable, expendable asset if it enriches or preserves himself.
And I do want to make one thing clear. The 24 years that he did serve, yeah, I respect anybody who went in and served. The thing is, he's claiming to be that which he was not. So, besides, I mean, there's a level of cowardice there, I think, and I use that term, you know, lightly because I never served at all, like I said. But when you find out you're supposed to be going somewhere and that's when you decide to bail, I mean, when he went to it, when they did actually get shipped out, they went to Italy. I mean, he basically had a vacation where he was doing, all the stuff in support of what was going on. But
Well, and
when they were actually
back
supposed
in
to
the day,
go
right?
to the combat zone, that's when he was like, "Nope, I'm checking out and I'm going to run for office."
And back in the day, pre 9/11, right? I joined shortly before 9/11. Um, but military service wasn't a bad gig. It was kind of an easy job, if you will. Like now, don't get me wrong, you you're putting a lot on the line. You're signing that dotted line, and you're basically cutting a blank check to the United States government
Right.
for any price up to and including your life.
Hmm.
But but the likelihood that you're going to find yourself in a dangerous combat situation was pretty low, and it wasn't too bad a gig. You got 3 squares a day, you got housing and everything else. It was and basically you got a lot of training and good stuff. After 9/11, job got a little bit harder. There was a lot more expected of you, and we were in a war essentially. So I mean, there was a certain shift in the kind of people that were in the military and the kind of people that wanted to be in the military after that particular event.
Which is where you bring in JD Vance. He actually signed up after 9/11.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't get
there's
out.
lots
I
of people
I
like
stayed
that.
in because of that. I was
Right.
honestly I was not a super patriotic person. I did the military because I was lazy and I didn't do well in school, so no college would have me because I graduated with a 1.8 GPA. Mean, Meanwhile, I was in like the top 10% on the ACT, but a 1.8 GPA tells the colleges all they need. Oh, this guy doesn't do a damn thing.
Smart but not committed.
Yeah, smart but doesn't care. So I ended up in the military, and honestly, being in the military is what made me become so patriotic, because not because I was brainwashed or any of that crap, but because I started to actually realize like that it's cliche as hell, but freedom isn't free. And
Right.
if nobody's willing to stand up and protect it, we will lose it. It will go away very fast.
Which is the battle we're in right now. I mean, it's not the military battle. It is the battle of people's minds and hearts at the moment, trying to get them to realize communism is what's coming if we don't make the right choices over the next few years.
This is I've seen this said by a lot of people on X over the last like few weeks, and like you only get to vote for communism once.
Yeah,
and then
once it's
Yep.
there, you don't get voted
and then
back
there's no
out.
more voting. Look at
Look at,
Venezuela.
yeah, Maduro. Yep.
So
So we've got a clear choice here because all right, we've hit the stolen valor thing. I think I think we're all in agreement kind of there, and we've kind of covered that. The other parts of this ticket are horrible. I mean, they're trying to make these people moderates, and Kamala Harris and Walz are absolutely socialist communist all the way through. Everything that they have stood for is a communist ideal. I mean, between the trans issue and you know, well, Chad, you want to go through kind of the list of everything?
for which one of them or both of them?
Let's go with
All
Walls
right.
because
All right.
he's the newbie to this.
Yeah, so Walls, in terms of being an outright communist, in addition to his own words, where he said, and I quote, one person's socialism is another word's neighborliness.
Yeah, and that was just 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
on the Dudes for Harris chat thing that they did, the Zoom call.
Yeah, so he has passed in his time as governor. I mean, they're touting some of the more universally liked programs like free lunches for everybody, school lunches, free school lunches.
Hmm.
But in addition to that, on a more nefarious one, he has passed programs, and this is the one that I think is telling because right now his main go to line on on the standard stump speech they're giving between the two of them is mind your own damn business, right? You just mind your own damn business. He specifically passed legislation to allow the CPS service of Minnesota to take children out of the homes, to remove children if the parents don't agree with gender reassignment surgery. This was
Why didn't he
something,
mind his own damn
yeah.
business?
It's if you're,
Well,
it's interesting that if it's a question of if you should be able to kill a baby at 8 months in gestation, you have to mind your own damn business. But if you don't want to have your kids' junk chopped off, the state has a very aggressive stance and will remove your children.
right.
And in
And then
addition,
then you
go ahead.
look at the COVID stuff where
Yes,
he was
he
basically
set up.
telling neighbors to
Yeah,
report
he set up
on
a
their
hotline.
neighbors.
He set up a hotline to report to Minnesota authorities if you saw people violating the COVID restrictions,
Like
including
going to church.
going out and playing basketball outside in your driveway,
Yeah.
going down to the local park with like your 3-year old to let them sit on a swing in the outside during the summer. And he
So
kept that hotline up well after COVID had resolved to the point of things being reopened.
There's very little question that he's scum. Like, he is scum. I'm sorry. He is.
Yeah, so like Davinia says, it was very much like calling the Stasi.
very much like what Gina
yeah,
Carano got fired
yeah,
for tweeting.
yeah. So he has put now. Here's another thing: Minnesota, when he took office, I believe had about a $17 billion surplus in their rainy day fund, and he went on a spree of spending like a drunken sailor as soon as they got like one more vote in the Minnesota House than the Republicans, and they've been spending on all these programs. And then he got caught. This is a scandal that I think will come up more. A Somali based aid organization has now been proven to have committed the largest fraud in the history of the United States, where I
Yeah.
think it's standing now at
Ballot harvesting.
$250 million in COVID like relief funds,
Oh, that one. Okay.
that they just absconded with. And he kept paying them after it was known they were committing fraud because he tried to say he couldn't stop it, even though it's been shown he definitely could. He, as the governor, he could have stopped the checks once the fraud was known. And that organization just happens to be one that is very close to Elon Omar and a lot of the Somali community within Minnesota. And so there's a lot of questions on if there was money funneling going. Maybe, I'm sure Act Blue donations certain went up around the time that this money was going to them.
Shocking.
Shockingly.
That's like you fire a guy because he's stealing money out of the register, right? And then he comes in at the end of the day and he's like, "Hey, where's my paycheck?" Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Dude's bad news. I mean,
Yeah.
they're going to try to push this as a very centrist, moderate ticket. Don't let him get away with it. Is kind of the point, because yeah, as much as they want to try to make our side look weird, the things that these two people stand for are absolutely insane. It's not
Yeah.
weird. It's insane.
There's good kind of weird and bad kind of weird.
Another point I'll make about Walls, because this guy is a piece of crap.
Mhm.
During the Summer of Love post George Floyd, because remember that occurred in Minnesota.
Yeah.
As Minneapolis is burning, obviously everyone across the country and within Minnesota was demanding activate the National Guard, put a stop to these riots. Tim Walz, who is currently now draping himself in the 24 years of service he did, specifically mostly with the Minnesota National Guard, saying that he is a command sergeant major, a veteran who understands soldiers' issues. At the time when this was going on, came out and did a little press conference. And when he was confronted, because as Southern Belle said, he didn't do it for 4 days, when he was asked about why he wasn't calling out the National Guard, he said, "What am I going to do? You know, they're just a bunch of 19-year-old cooks. They're not trained for anything like this."
Right. This is while his daughter is tweeting out to people and putting stuff on Slack or whatever system they were using at the time. No, don't worry. Keep doing whatever you're doing as protesters, because my dad is not going to do anything. He's not going to call in the National Guard.
Yeah,
so that's how he raised his child to be basically a communist Marxist as well. I mean, she's literally telling people, no, keep burning the cities down because my dad won't do anything about it.
Yeah, he's there. And now he's done a lot of programs to spend a lot of money on a lot of stupid stuff. So that $17 billion surplus that he came into office with is now going to be over the next 2 years going to be a $2 billion shortfall. He's in addition to all the tax revenue they've generated since he took office as governor, they managed to spend all of that plus 17 billion based on the programs he's enacted, and they're bankrupting their state, just like he's given giant wads of money to every public sector union that could get additional money. So
and how much of that was spent on tampons in the fourth grade boys room.
Yeah, the tampons for boys rooms. I swear to God, if I was a kid and they put that in my school, I know that one place I saw reports they initially did pads, but all the boys started taking them and just sticking them everywhere on walls or on things, and sounds pretty funny to me, because like, that does sound funny.
Or
and
you just flush them in the toilet and then cause a stoppage
Yeah.
in the whole plumbing situation there.
I mean, if it was the tampons,
you mean cause a water main break?
Yeah,
yeah,
because that doesn't cost anything either.
So then they're switching to tampons, which of course the boys then suddenly were doing all sorts of other things, like stuffing them up their nose and being stupid kids. I would like if I was a kid, and I would empty out every in a men's room, every tampon dispenser. I would just take them, throw them away. Like, make them spend that money. If they're going to be stupid, just do it, and just make it a giant waste of.
Fourth graders aren't going to think that way, but
I
they
don't
would.
know.
They would.
But they
use
would
them
put
to
them up their nose.
do a whole bunch of crazy antics with. Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a nosebleed, it's probably pretty good for that. Super absorbent, right?
And it even has a nice string to be able to take it out when you're done. It's all sorts of positives.
Depends on your flow.
I've seen other schools where there's pictures where the guys, if it's a high school, they'll rip it off the wall and like throw it into a toilet. I was like, those are base chads in whatever school they're in.
Yes.
Good for them. But that what it tells you is the first solo decision Kamala was responsible for making. She picked probably the most left wing but benign looking. Like it's stealth. This is telling
They're
you this.
yeah, they want him to
This
be
yeah
America's dad,
yeah.
and that is not what he is.
But
He's
it's actually confessing who they are. They're
yeah,
putting a guy who looks like he's supposed to be some down home farmer guy who's actually basically an avowed socialist, and
Well, and
he's
they're
Bernie
trying to say
Sanders.
they're trying to say he's got this Midwest AF energy, I think was something I read about him, and I'm like, I grew up in small town Illinois. This dude is not Midwest AF.
No, I mean there's footage of him going to like the Minnesota farmers like festival, like the county, the state fair, the
Yeah.
farm one, and he got booed off this, like people didn't want to even see him there. And this is the one they said is going to magically unlock rural votes for
Yeah,
Kamala.
dude, you're not our people. I'm sorry. And
no. If you look at the voting within his own state for him, I mean, it is literally like every other thing that happens in this country. He got the city vote. He did not get any of the rural because he doesn't connect with rural. So if that's what they're counting on, that's not gonna do it.
I
The
mean, it's not like they needed to win Illinois. They've already got that one in the bag, I'm sure, because Chi- like half of Chicago can turn out to vote and negate the rest of the state. So
right, and Minnesota is same situation. The,
yeah, like those
this
states are
election
done
runs through
for.
Pennsylvania, and the fact that she would not pick Shapiro from Pennsylvania,
And maybe Georgia.
I think Pennsylvania is going to be what
The
calls
decider.
this election.
Okay.
All right, real quick, just on this thing, they're trying to make it sound like he's an all shucks football coach guy. He lied
Yeah.
about that too. He
Really?
yes, so
He
he's in the
he was
Kamala
the
official
defensive coordinator.
in the Kamala official bio. They say like he was a football coach that led his team to the first state title they'd ever won. He was the
He
defensive.
wasn't the head coach.
He wasn't the head coach.
He was
He
the
was
defense
More
coordinator.
stolen
was-
valor.
he was like and high school football, that in rural zones, that is some places that might be worse than lying about military record. Like if you watched Varsity Blues, if this was in Texas, they might have strung
Yeah.
this guy up for lying
Dude,
about
I'll tell you what. I was on my football team as the equipment manager and water boy. But guess what? Guess whose name is on the plaque when we won state?
yeah,
But
but he's
I'm not gonna
implied that
come out
he's
and be like, hey,
yeah.
by the way, I was the quarterback.
There is some I'm this is just opinion based on purely what I've seen. I have no knowledge. I'm not making any accusations. But the man became the faculty advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance like in 1998 when no one was doing that.
Oh boy.
For high
He-
schoolers.
he's definitely got some flamboyant gesturing in a lot of his videos, and he gives me a Dennis Hastert vibe. So if you want to talk about Midwest all shucks coach kind of vibe, he gives me the Dennis Hastert vibe about why he was probably working with young men.
Yeah.
And
I want to be the guy who gets to talk to all the gay kids in high school.
yeah.
Oh,
So,
boy.
and this is that's again, I have no evidence of this, and I'm not making an accusation. This is just based on visual clues and cues that I think that may be something that could come out later.
This is just me talking shit. Or is it? It is. But are you sure?
I mean,
We will see.
I mean, when a guy keeps talking about how it's weird, and I mean, one of his main focuses was putting the tampons. Oh, the other crazy legislative thing he did is he specifically had them strike from a human rights bill something that said minor attracted persons, pedophiles, PDFs, whatever phrase you want to use, would not be eligible to claim this as a protection because
Right.
it was they were modifying it to include gender identity and all the other things that is very de jour right now with the left. So one of the Republican state legislatures said, "Okay, we're going to put an amendment just to make it clear that anybody who engages in relations with minor children under the statutes as a pedophile would not be covered under this," and they made them take it out.
Right. Much like
Much
Newsom
like-
in
yeah.
California doing crap like this.
It
where,
just
yeah.
seems like an odd choice for a governor of Minnesota who's so like don't be weird to say, in that human rights bill, it's a priority for me to make sure that pedophiles are protected. So let's take that clause out. Let's remove it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not
Which
okay with it.
is becoming a trend amongst the leftists between different governors doing stuff like this and different federal appointed judges being like, no, it's not really a problem. We're good with that. I don't think the rest of the country is good with that.
No.
So, yeah, the choice is becoming pretty clear. I mean, I think we all kind of knew where we were anyway, but these people, yeah, if you're saying that this is the most important election in your lifetime, which they say about every one of them, I think we are at the point where it is becoming that as reality, not as propaganda, because the left just keeps sliding closer and closer to actual Marxism, while the right is just trying to keep the country going as a free state.
And keep us out of World War III. Because if you think that the run up to possible World War III has been awesome under Biden, just wait till you see how quick
Oh
it
yeah,
goes if
watch
it's
the
Kamala.
accelerationism at work.
Yeah. Well,
But
and the
the other
stuff we're
thing
seeing in the
too,
UK, it's like, yeah, if you're really worried about right wing authoritarianism, yeah, that's coming in through our border. It's not coming from the Christian right. It's coming from the Islamic right.
I mean, it's a shame that those crazy, crazy right wingers in England complaining about people stabbing their children. Who
oh
would think that that you should go online and say that it's bad that people stabbed children under 10 at a Taylor Swift music party? I
yeah, no,
mean,
well, and
God
Well,
knows those are the
that
people we
wasn't the
need to put in
cause.
jail.
That wasn't the thing that kicked it off. That was the straw that broke the camel's back because that
No.
shit's been happening
Yeah,
for
I mean,
years.
it goes back to
yeah.
Rotterdam where they had a whole count, like I guess English version of a county where they were grooming children for 20
But we need
years.
to stop talking about it, or
Yeah.
they're going to come over and arrest us. So,
Yeah,
Oh,
good
I
luck
would.
with that.
Yeah, I think Elon's on their list first to extradite.
but
Yeah.
the one other point I want to make about walls is like I want to point out the blatant hypocrisy and the huge double standard one more time because Trump, we know, likes to exaggerate things a little. Um, and every time he does, it's like, oh, he's a liar. He lied. That's the fact check false. Trump's evil. Why, when Walsh does it, is like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just a teeny little exaggeration. Like he's the kind of guy who would get CPR certified and then be like, I'm a doctor.
Or Jill Biden
Yeah,
got a PhD. I'm a doctor.
yeah. Like, no, dude, no.
That's Dr. Jill Biden. Thank you very much.
Speaking of which, where the hell is he?
He's in Delaware at the beach.
Well, yeah, that's a weekend thing, but
I'll tell you where he's not is running the country.
I mean, he did give interviews this week where he confirmed they threatened him for him to resign. I think that was really nice to actually have on the record straight from the horse's mouth while he could remember he was a human.
yeah.
Oh,
Do
by the way,
you think
keep
he's
Tim
going
Walz
to?
away from him because if you hear him say straight from the horse's mouth, he'll have a lot of other reactions that we don't like.
Yeah, Tim likes horses. But I mean, so I'm trying to understand the whole leftist mentality during this whole thing because she has gone out and given the same speech 3 times in the last week. 2 of them have also been accompanied by concerts, which is what seems to be getting people out for her. I don't deny, some of the crowds that have been going out there, but she keeps saying all these things that she's going to do. She's effectively in charge of the country right now. So why aren't these things happening now? Why isn't anybody calling her out on this? You have the levers of power now. She keeps running against herself and the policies that she has been part of for 3.5 years, saying she's going to fix the things that she broke. And nobody is calling her out on this, saying
think,
that, well, I'm going to fix it if I get elected.
I think
You could do it now, you dumb bitch.
Technically, it's against the rules of the mainstream media to call this out during Brat Summer. It would break.
Yeah.
They've got to let her have her whole Brat Summer, and then she's going to do remember, at the end of August, before the end of August, maybe in the beginning of September, she'll sit down for an interview with someone, maybe sometime.
She said she'll do it by the end of this month. She will have an interview done.
An interview.
That
yeah.
was said on the 9th of August. That leaves the majority of the month before she would do a sit-down interview if she's saying that she will do it by the end of the month.
Well,
She is now only committed to the original debate, even though there are 3 that have been committed to by Donald Trump. And that was under the original ABC rules.
Right? Because he said the ABC one is not happening.
No, I think he did say,
he
I'll
went
do
ahead.
it
He
with
went ahead
2
and,
others.
He went ahead and agreed to the ABC one, and then he said he'd also do one on Fox and NBC.
The Fox one,
basically,
and the NBC one.
So every network could have a debate.
Good, because I was going to say, if she refuses the other 3, take the ABC one, because anytime you get her talking, you win.
Right. But they're not getting her talking. So, I mean, that's the reason he has to have the one debate at very least.
He's got to get her talking.
And we know what will happen because it just happened in one of her stump speeches. Somebody started talking that she didn't like.
Excuse me?
And she immediately, excuse me, I'm speaking. That's all she did during the Pence debate, if you remember the vice presidential debate.
Get her to say
it's like 25 times. She's just like, I'm speaking.
Get her to say that and you win. Because it's so shrill. It like every guy hears that and immediately just goes a rubbery one. Like just
yeah. She thinks it comes off as a power move, and outside of leftist white women, I don't think it comes off as a power move to anybody else.
Like women should keep that as a soundbite on their phone, and if your husband or your boyfriend's feeling a little frisky and you're just not in the mood, accidentally play that soundbite, you won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, core member, if you want another challenge, go get the scene from South Park, the movie, where the Canadian Prime Minister, where they're talking about Terrence and Phillip, and he's like, "Excuse me, can I speak now? Can I speak now? Excuse me, can I finish? Can I finish?
I'm finished.
I'm finished." I mean, that is all she does during a debate. She doesn't bring anything except for talking points and claiming that she's being interrupted because she's a woman. The funny thing is, when you actually treat women in politics as equals and speak to them the same way you would as men, they claim it as you're being misogynist by talking over them or actually having a debate with them. Like, you're not allowed to actually have a debate or disagree with them. And she is one of the worst about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we've got the one debate scheduled. I think it's September 4th. I don't know. Do we know when early voting starts?
I know in Virginia, it starts in the back end of September, like around the 20th.
Okay. So most of the debates will take place, if they take place, before early voting starts, which is an important point because the second people start hearing this woman talk, like off script, she's screwed. She'll get her 40% from the Democratic base, but the independents, they tend to pay a little bit more attention than your average Democrat voter. Maybe not as much attention as your right-leaning voter, because we tend to actually try to keep ourselves informed because we have to go search out actual information rather than listening to the media. But yeah, the second she starts talking, you're going to see this honeymoon period be over. You saw it a little bit during her campaign speeches this week. You see people just walking out of these campaign events because once the concert's over,
once Megan Thee Stallion is done, why would you want to stay?
Once the concert's over, it's, she's done. I mean, there's no reason to be there when you didn't have to pay for a $385 ticket to see Meg Thee Stallion or Bon Iver, whatever his name is.
Yeah, and I hope a lot of these people remember that just because she put on a concert doesn't mean you owe her anything, especially not your vote. Just please.
Yeah.
Please don't think that you owe her a vote because of a concert.
She is currently doing the high school running for student body president of throwing candy into the crowd and saying, "Now vote for me."
I'll make all the water fountains Kool-Aid dispensers.
And tampons in every bathroom. All right. Well, I screwed up and overslept a little bit this morning, so we got a late start. But yeah, we're getting to the point where Chad's got to go because he's got an actual Sunday planned. I'd like to thank Slender for being here. What do you guys got coming up this week?
I got Ascend an Arcade. I missed Friday because we had that big storm come through and I had no power for most of the day. But plenty of Elden Ring footage has been collected, so I'll probably be putting up clips of Elden Ring and some Shadow of the Erdtree stuff.
Cool. Chad?
Yeah, we got Tuesday gaming with you on your channel here. We're going to be doing our normal Friday night 9 p.m. Eastern Ascendant Art podcast show. I know that we may have some What the Flicks coming up this month, allegedly, possibly, could be, maybe, depending on how our bro is up to it. So, but mainly the Ascendant Art podcast, Ascendant Art here on YouTube, 9 p.m. Friday. That's where we'll be doing our mainline thing this week, like always.
Awesome. As for me, I will be on Comics Division tomorrow night for Monday Night Meltdown or Monday Meltdown. And on Thursday night, we are dropping, it sounds like, the Wednesday show. I think we have a Christian panel this week on Carrie Smith's channel, Wednesday evening. And then, yeah, back with you guys on Friday. And no bourbon and boarding for another month or two as we wait for hockey to get going. So continue to please come see us on Sunday morning, and hope everybody has a great end of their weekend. And we will catch you all next week. We'll do the intro again, I think, to close out. But thanks everybody for being here. It's great to see everybody in the chat.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Broken system chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning